Hey everybody, it's Doug Bossi. I wanted to do a little behind the scenes of Phantom Navigator, the tribute to Wayne Shorter. I basically started this song with this arpeggiator sound that I had discovered in Logic. So I was playing around with this arpeggiator and I started doing like a cinematic jazz approach to the writing, just kind of free flowing. And then the more I thought about it, it kind of started reminding me of Weather Report. And then I thought about Wayne Shorter. I thought this would be a great song to have as a tribute to Wayne. And there was an album called Phantom Navigator that he had. And to me, Wayne always seemed like a Phantom Navigator in music. He was always able to, when you hear great sax players like Branford Marsalis and guys that sort of introspectively speak in a song, that's how Wayne's music was to me. And so I first reached out to Brian Allen on bass, great bass player I met here in Nashville. He played all the upright stuff, a la Jocko, and then played upright as well for the Ron Carter section when we kind of do an introspective Miles bit of the song. And then from there, I reached out to the great Tom Brechtlein, who I did an interview with that I'll put right after this little intro. And Tom is I met him in LA. He's played with, Robin Ford, Blue Line, Chick Corea. And of course he played also with Wayne. So he has some great stories about playing with Wayne. And I needed a sax player, somebody that could really come in and do justice to Wayne. And I found, I just did some research online of here in Nashville now, and I reached out and found an incredible player named Jovan Coelho. He came in and that's one take you hear, and it was amazing. So I needed a little upright piano, so I asked my friend David Garfield from Los Lobotomies and all the stuff he does with his own music to kind of improvise something on the Miles section. And then, of course, I'm a big fan of guitarist Tim Miller, so I asked him to kind of splash some clean guitar towards the end and then do a solo, and so he did that. And so what follows this is we took it out of Logic and I brought it over to Pro Tools to have everybody play on it, and I wanted to interview Tom Brechtlein. So what follows this will be a short interview with Tom Brechtlein, and I hope you enjoy. How are you, man?
Good.
Good to see you, man. Well, thank you, Tom Brechtlein, for joining me today on this little conversation down memory lane. I first want to show a quick picture. I'm going to share a screen with you. This is a younger Tom Brechtlein with Wayne Shorter back in the day.
Yeah.
I can't remember what video I snapped that from on the right, but
the one on the right is the one on the right is from that's from the North Sea Jazz Festival.
Well, thank you again, man. Just my story with regarding Tom is I met Tom, I think at MI during some, guitar explosion on stage, and Tom and I were like, "Hey, man, we got to do something together." And here we are, finally, many, many years later. I wrote this tribute to Wayne Shorter. I was a big Wayne Shorter fan in high school and loved all his work, solo work, and Miles and Weather Report, of course, Joni Mitchell, of course. And so, I had this record called Phantom Navigator. And when I wrote this song, I thought, I'm going to call it Phantom Navigator because to me, that's what reminded me of how Wayne used to play and slip in and out of things. And, he was just great. And then when I called Tom to play on this piece, he goes, "Oh, I'm on that record." So anyway, I just want to get your how you got the gig, how I was working with Wayne. You had a great story you were telling me about playing with him in New York after this, coming over from the pond and doing Blue Note, I think. And, we'll give it away. But anyway, yeah, tell us about working with Wayne, man.
Well, I got the gig. First, Larry Klein had called me up, producer, bass player, great bass player. Back then he was, and we had played together a few times, and he had called me up, and he said, "Would you like to play with Wayne Shorter?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And he gave me the dates, and I said, I was already booked, and I went, I can't do it. And then after I hung up the phone, I went, what did I just do? I should have canceled the other gig. I went up the club and played with Wayne. Well, then I had to go out of town for about a day or two. And then when I got back, This time, Jimmy Haslett called me, and he said, "Would you like to play with Wayne?" So he would, and I said, without even, because the other gig got canceled, but even if it didn't get canceled, I would have said yes, you know. The second time, the first time I was stupid not to say yes, you know. And, so I actually got a second chance, you know. I mean, it's very rarely you get a second chance like that, you know.
That's awesome.
And then, you know, went over to Wayne's house, met Wayne. We talked a little bit, and after 3 or 4 rehearsals, we were rehearsing. We did not, and we were figuring Gary and myself, and at the time, Tom Canning. Later on, Mitchell Foreman joined us. Tom had left. And we were going like, are we hired or what? And then finally went, you know, they just kind of went, yeah, you're hired. You know, and everything just kind of came together. It was really fun. It was.
Do you remember your first gig or your first rehearsal, or was it like, you know, must have been early?
All we did was go over, it was stuff from the Atlantis record, because that had just gotten released.
Okay.
And there were no blowing sections. So we basically rehearsed the heads, and the blowing started on the gig. And I think the first gigs we did were at the Palace Court up above the Hollywood Palace. And those are really well. And it just kept on getting better and better and better and better, you know.
In your development as a musician and a drummer, like when were you first aware of Wayne Shorter and his music? Were you listening to Miles? Did you see him in New York? I mean, how did you?
In high school, well, you know, I mean, all that stuff was brand new back then. They were just starting. Weather Report, you know, Mahavishnu Orchestra. I was like 17 or 16 or 17, you know. I mean, wow. Orchestra, Weather Report, Larry Coryell, The 11th House, Return to Forever.
Yeah.
There was some other ones too. I mean, I probably had forgotten about. I mean, there were all kinds of, but those were the main four. And then there was George Duke, and he had Feel, and
Tony Williams with
the Oracle will prevail. The Oracle will prevail, and
yeah,
I love the Blue She Heard My Cry. And then there was Billy Cobham after Mahavishnu, and of course the guy who, from what I understand, started the whole thing was Tony Williams with Lifetime at the Emergency Room.
Yeah. It's fascinating. I mean, it must have felt like graduating in a way, playing with Wayne. I mean, I'm assuming that, like Miles, he didn't really tell everybody what to do or play much other than.
No, and it came from like my first big experience was when I was playing with Chick Corea, you know, and I played with him for about 3 or 4 years. And then from 78, like, you know, 83, something like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, Chick gave you the leeway, but he was specific in certain things. And of course, I was fresh out of the water when I was him. And then when we started rehearsing with Wayne, I was always of the ilk to ask. I mean, in between that, I was playing with Joe Farrell and a bunch of other people, you know. But at that gig, I remember looking at Wayne and going, what do you want me to play on this? And he just turned around and he would just go, you know what you're doing. And I turned back around and said, okay, so, you know.
That's awesome.
The only instruction that he ever gave me, he gave me two. One, we were going, we were in Berlin, and we were playing. I can't remember what place in Berlin we were playing at, but Joe Zawinul was on before us, and he had all these linked up synthesizers. This is before MIDI. Well, kind of before MIDI. You know, when you could hook, well, it was, he hooked up all these synthesizers with these big straps, you know, wire straps, you know, to a drum machine. I can't remember. I think it might have been a bunch of emulators. I'm not sure.
Wow.
when he was out there, they're throwing paper planes onto the stage, and I mean, it sounded amazing. But the people from Berlin, they're booing him because probably wasn't pure or whatever. I don't know.
Wow.
Well, Gary Willis and I are standing on the side of the stage, and things are going great, and I'm looking at Gary, I said, "Oh, I wonder what's going to happen tonight. It's going to be," because every gig was better and better. It was fun. So Wayne comes up to me before the gig. He comes up to me. He goes, "Hey, Tom." And usually Wayne's all cheerful and stuff, but he didn't have a smile. He looks up. He wasn't dark or anything, but it was like he was like, "Hey, Tom." I said, "Yeah, Wayne." He says, "When we start playing Beauty and the Beast," he says, "I want you to dance." He goes, "I want you to know you can play before your drum solo." And then he just walked away. And I looked at Gary. I said, "What was that all about?" Right? So, and you can see it on YouTube. The performance is on YouTube.
That's cool.
And so we start with Beauty and the Beast. He's walking around like this, and he looks at me. He goes, "Dance." I'm thinking, what's going on? I said, "I'll give you a dance," and then he just kept on turning around. He goes, "Dance," like that. And so then we started, and it gets more intense, and then by the second tune or something, we got a standing ovation. And so at the end of the gig, I was pissed off, because Wayne had never acted that, that way, even after that incident,
Interesting.
So when we were getting ready to go back to the hotel, the woman that, very nice woman, that Wayne was dating at the time, came up to us, and I hadn't been in Europe for about maybe 2 or 3 years. Last I was in Europe was, I don't know, I was in Europe for a while. And she came up to us and she goes, "You know what you guys just did?" I said, "No, what?" Because I'm still figuring out why the hell Wayne was doing what he was doing. And she said, "You just wowed the toughest audience in Europe." And I said, and she didn't know it was happening. And I said, and I just happened to say, "You mean, is that why Wayne was doing that?" And then Wayne pops his head out of a collar with a big smile. He goes, "You got that right." And I said, "Don't ever do that again." And he put his head, he goes, "I won't,"
Real quick.
Trying to get the gap, he got the results. He got it. And then he put his head, it was really sweet. And I'll always keep that close to my heart. He put his head in my shoulder, and the tour manager says, "Yeah, go ahead and tell him." "I just want to tell you. Because you play a mean drumstick."
Oh, that's awesome.
And I looked at him, and this is an icon. And I'm talking to him like this about, "Don't ever do that again." I should have said, "Be my guest,"
Yeah.
That's how cool Wayne was,
Yeah.
I mean, he
is the epitome of
could
cool.
be you, and he wasn't, I mean, remember one time we watched the movie, Gary and I were sitting in front of him, and we were watching the movie, and he just put his arms around us, and he goes, "You're my boys," and it was
Wow.
very cool,
Yeah, a lot of people talk about Miles cool, and of course, Miles is the epitome of cool, but Wayne had this other thing, this deep cloud-like floating in like a bird. I mean, he was just cool, right? Yeah, I mean, the story of this song that we did as a tribute for Wayne, I just was like bubbling around with the synthesizer sound. It sounded like Zalinol, and I just wrote this thing with changes, and it was kind of very, very much a raw sketch, as you remember. And I called you and I said, "Hey, would you mind playing on this?" And we started talking about Wayne and just do your thing. And there's going to be a breakdown section where we kind of nod to the Miles period, and this is pre-bass on it. Brian Allen did an amazing job.
Yeah, he played fantastic.
Upright and doing the fretless stuff.
Yeah.
All the Weather Report. Tim Miller on guitar and Jovan Coelho on sax. Amazing job. But your whole drum approach was just, to me, just amazing. And at the end of it, it kind of ends cinematically. And you told me this great story. I just want you to repeat about New York.
The Blue Note.
Yeah, the Blue Note.
Yeah, yeah. We just got we were playing in Spain the night before, and we immediately got on. We immediately went to the airport, and then we hopped on a plane. I mean, you know, how you sleep on planes. Some people, I guess, sleep great on planes. But we got right off the plane into a car. I went straight to the Blue Note and set up. And this is like one of those tired's that you just don't care. And that night it was smoke. I mean, the whole weekend was smoking. I said, I don't care about any critics or whatever. I'm just going to play and have fun with Wayne. That's what, and the group. I was telling Willis that, So we played the first night. And I remember I'm going off different roads, but there was this one night where, Wayne and I used to do an imitation of Sinatra, and he loves Sinatra. So I used to go, "I've got you under my skin." So one night the electricity went out, and we stopped playing. He goes, "Hey, Tom," he goes, "Come on, man." He goes, "I got you." Like he wanted me to sing with him under my skin, on the stage at the Blue Note. I forgot about that. I just remembered that. But anyway, it was, I believe it was Sunday, and we do 3 sets on Sunday. No, it was the second night. And I remember, Wayne always used to say, and obviously, of course, let's make a movie. Of course, yeah. It's cinematic about it. Let's do it, And now this is going to sound weird and kind of like, whatever, but I remember, I had a China cymbal like up here, inverted, one of the old swish cymbals that I had. And there was this tune, and I can't remember but the end part went da dee da 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 doo dee dee. And he'd go into frenzy and all that below. He goes da da da. He go da 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 do. And then it would kind of simmer down, and he'd go. And then Gary was on a pedal. I don't know what note it was, just kind of rumbling underneath. And then Wayne does one of his haunting things, one. Da, 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 and he goes, da. And at the end, I just kind of like did a tiny little press wall with the Chinese little lip. Like that. And I swear to God, I am crazy. And it doesn't want to sound like, wow, But I actually saw the last flicker of the mothership through the clouds on the flame. And he just went, and then went, holy shit. I'm going to say that because the only way I can express it.
Yeah, no, it's a
movie, and
I mean, that's a great expression of Wayne's music. I mean, let's make a movie. When he would whisper that in almost a Miles voice, let's make a movie. I mean, it's almost like his music was so visual in a way, right?
Well, like I said, after I saw that, I went, shit, we made a movie. And Wayne looked at me and went,
So how was it? Now you recorded with him as well. So how was the recording process with Wayne? Because I mean, I'm always fascinated. Like there's a whole live thing where you probably a little more relaxed, and then you get into a recording studio, and some people are like, oh my gosh, I'm recording.
No, he's totally cool. We did just over takes on Phantom Navigator. I mean, I did another tune, but I can't remember what that one was. But and the rest was they were experimenting with machines and stuff like that.
Well, you sound so great. Is there any way because the drum kit that you're actually sitting at right there is the drum kit you recorded for the song. Can you talk a little bit about your drums and your setup just for other people? Because I know one of the great things about what you're doing is you're for hire, so people can hire you and check out your work and stuff. So talk a little bit about your studio, because when I got your drum sounds back, I was like, wow, it sounds really good.
Yeah, well, I change the tones from time to time. Now I'm doing these. I mean, they're Yamaha. They're all Yamaha, and These are a 22, a 10, a 12, and a 14. And then I'm using this Yamaha stainless steel snare, which is that I'm using as a table right now. And it's a great sounding instrument, you know. And usually I think for your thing I changed it. I had the hybrid maples, but when I switch the toms from time to time, and these sound great as well. And the cymbals are Sabian, you know, and the heads are Remo. And
And it sounds great. I mean, what are you using for mics? I'm always fascinated because I have a kit here as well. And, you know, it's when you get down the rabbit hole of drum mics and stuff, one of the things I wanted to do besides putting out the music was talk a little bit about the creative process and how it's done, a little bit behind the mirror, you know, behind the curtain, if you will. So how are you, because you've recorded drums on many iconic records with different, you know, engineers, different studios and stuff. So when you came to do your own home thing, what are you liking to use, you know, as far as microphones?
well, I was fortunate enough to get a Shure microphone endorsement.
Are you doing like kick in, kick out, or just kick in?
In.
In. And then snare top or bottom or just top?
I'm sorry, they're 98s. They're Shure 98s.
Okay.
And I put them on, and then I sent them to a couple of engineers, and they said, "Man, don't change a thing. The root sounds great."
It sounds great.
Yeah.
I was really impressed. I mean, you know, I've worked with different drummers and different people here and offsite. So it was a pleasure getting your drum sound.
Great. Well, I'm glad you liked it. I mean, D6
Yeah.
and the bass drum, and then this I5 Audix on the snare, and then a 57 on the bottom, and the overheads are 81s, I believe.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Same thing, and it's fairly simple, you know. I'm learning that that it all comes down to the way you tune the stuff and mic placement, you know.
Yeah, I'll put a link to Tom's info, you know, below this video. But
Thanks, Doug.
yeah, I'm excited to do some more work with you, man. We met that one time, and then you're in Austin, I'm in Nashville now. We all escaped LA, and yeah, more to come because it was so easy to work with you. And
Yeah, it's very easy.
thank you again, man, for playing on this track. And to the late great Wayne Shorter, you know, he will be missed, but his music lives on forever. And
Yeah, he was definitely not of this world. That's true genius.